Welcome to the Oneness Wellness Lifestyle Show. I am your host, Shifa, the natural healing voice of the soul of Mother Earth. Thank you so much for tuning in today. We have an exceptional show for you today. It is a special edition. We are dealing with a very serious subject that is, of course, for your healing. Now, I'm going to encourage you, as always, to go get your blue pen and your white paper and get ready to take copious notes, because you are about to get an extraordinary healing that you've been seeking. So I am just so full because of what we're going to talk about today. And yes, I'm building it up because I want to give you time to text a friend, email a friend, call someone up, and let them know that the Oneness Wellness Lifestyle Show is airing right now, and you don't want to miss this one. I am here today with our very, very special guest, A.W. Burges. A.W. Burges, write that name down. A.W. Burges. Our topic for today is domestic violence. Not just awareness, but the eradication, how about that, of domestic violence. You know, I'm always going to bring you what I feel like is the solution and most definitely the healing. So prepare yourself, call a friend as we introduce A.W. Burges. Thank you so much for being on the show today. I'm so happy that you are here with us on today. We're going to just have a very candid, open, honest conversation. I've never had anything other than that with you. I am totally moved by this initiative your whole life, having had the privilege, the blessing, I even call it, to know more about who you are and what you bring to humanity, So we're just going to do interview style, and I know I'm always like goofing off and talking with you, you know, audience. Y'all know me, right? Shifa. So, but I really want you to be serious, and you have to be for this. And I'm going to remind you again to call a friend, family member, tune in right now as we start this interview. When we talk about domestic violence, what was uplifting to me initially, I mean, from the onset, is FamilyMankind.org. FamilyMankind.org. Your website, your book, okay, this movement. So as we begin, tell me, the audience, tell us a little bit about how you came about Family Mankind, what it means, and then we'll talk about why are you doing this?
Indeed. Well, first and foremost, thank you again for having me. I'm
Certainly.
Truly humbled. Family Mankind came about simply because many moons ago, and something that I'm not ashamed of, but something that I am able to admit, is I was a domestic violence offender. And I was a domestic violence offender in my teens, all the way through college. And ultimately, that led me to prison. I went to prison in my senior year of college behind domestic violence. And, you know, many folks who know me, many individuals who hear my story are shocked, because today you see the destination. You see the family man, which is what many people referred to me over the years. You know, I've been married nearly 30 years. Wonderful wife. I have 4 daughters, and so they see the bow tie, they see the business success, and that's just the destination. To really know who a person really is is where they began. And so I admit to the world that I am a domestic violence offender. And as I share with folks, that is, nothing easy to admit, but what supersedes that is knowing that I intentionally harmed someone who actually loved me. I believe that is more difficult to really digest than to admit publicly. Now, the public admittance healed me, because what I saw was all of these strong victims coming forth, breaking the silence of violence. But I really didn't see a solution outside of if an individual is victimized. They either live with the violence in silence,
Sure.
they don't share it with family members or friends. And what I thought was, well, what about the victimizer? What is the victimizer doing? If we have the victims who are finding their healing, but what about the victimizer? Where does that person go? And so for me, it was like the Me Too movement has come, the Time's Up movement has come, and these are great movements. But these are movements where are our men? Where are the supporters of these individuals, these very strong individuals who decided to make a change, who decided to come out of the darkness so that other people wouldn't, suffer in silence? And again, for me, it was, where are the men? Where are the ones who actually traumatize these people, and what are they doing? Because the odds are that they're probably continuing to traumatize other people.
Okay, so that's what I was gonna. So you're talking to the abusers.
I'm talking to the abusers. Obviously, we as an organization, our unique selling, propositions is, if we believe that if to stop domestic violence is we have to stop the abuser, we have to stop the batterer, we have to stop the individual who is causing the harm to innocent victims. And I know there are people out there that will say, oh, well, these victims aren't always innocent. Well, I have to disagree, because I don't think anyone purposely signs up to be battered, to be mentally abused, to be financially abused, to be spiritually abused. And so the solution to me, is we have to address the mentality, the mental wellness of the batterer, of the abuser, of the individual who is harming innocent victims. Because again, at the end of the day, no one gets up in the morning to be victimized.
So you're pulling the wool off the covers. You're pulling the covers off of the abusers, the bad guys, so to speak, right?
Yes.
And who cares about them?
Well, at the end of the day, let's everybody says they want to keep it real. That's the big saying.
Yes.
I keep it real. To me, real, REAL, stands for really effective at loving or really effective at lying.
Okay.
So
Wait. Write that down. Please say that again. Real?
Real is really effective at loving or really effective at lying. So we're talking about truth versus
falsehood.
an untruth, a falsehood, a hypocrite. And so as I share with all batterers, with all abusers, I am not calling you out. I'm calling you in. Because, see, we know that calling you out literally pushes you further away from seeking your truth, from seeking your healing. And so my position is, if you want to be healed, it has to be revealed. So many of us, when we're sick, you got a bad stomach ache, what do? We throw it up. If it's, again, we crap it out. And so to get that, because think about it, if you don't, your body becomes toxic.
Right. It festers.
It festers to the point where it becomes
More
septic,
disease. Yeah.
more disease, right? And then what happens when it becomes septic? Your vital organs start shutting down. So think about that literally and figuratively. We start shutting down. And then those around us are mentally touched by it. And so when you think about how, as I share with folks, not only was I a physical abuser, I was a mental abuser. I was a controller. I was an individual who thought that my way was the only way, not just the right way, but the only option. And that's not normal. That's not natural. And so we're talking about how do we get to those solutions to permanently eradicate, not become an awareness organization where we're making you aware of it. That's not solving the solution to protecting people. So we're talking about getting to the root cause.
I'm in the love portion of this, really effective about loving, and I'm all for calling people in. I love that. I love that. So let me just share. I'm on your website, familymankind.org, and it says violence matters. And I just want to read this because I thought it was and is the definition, because it helped me. According to the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence is the willful intimidation, physical assault, battery, sexual assault, and or other abusive behavior as part of a systemic or systematic pattern of power and control, and you talked about it having to be your way, perpetrated by one intimate partner against another. It includes physical violence, sexual violence, threats, and emotional, psychological abuse. The frequency and severity of domestic violence varies dramatically. We're going to take a break right now, and this is a special episode of the Oneness Wellness Lifestyle Show, She-Fat Awakens. In order to eradicate domestic violence, we get to awaken to what it really is and take the steps necessary to get involved and to institute solutions. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Oneness Wellness Lifestyle Show. I sure appreciate you being here. I hope you did take time to bring a friend into this very special edition of the Oneness Wellness Lifestyle Show today. She-Fat Awakens. We're talking about domestic violence with our very special guest, A.W. Burges, author of The Family Man,
The Family Man.
The Family Man. But there's a subtitle to that. What's the subtitle?
Solutions to permanently eradicate domestic violence, child abuse, and bullying.
The Family Man.
The solutions to permanently eradicate domestic violence, child abuse, and bullying.
Okay. So huge. I was saying on the break that this is big. And so important. So one of the things I wanted to get back to, you said it was about control.
Yes.
So what was that? Where did that live in you? Where did that come from?
Excellent question. In that, as a young child, things led up to me obviously committing acts of violence, and not just acts of violence against my girlfriend or my wife. I remember as a youth playing football, and I was a pretty good athlete. And at the school I attended, we had a family weekend, and so we had fathers. It was Father's Day weekend at this school, and I remember literally being in a game and looking over to the sidelines, and I saw many of my teammates and their granddads and their dads were hugging them, and I literally, it was like something just overwhelmed me. This is during an actual football game. The question was, where is my dad? And so I remember going home that weekend and asking my grandmother and my mother, hey, what happened to my dad? Because the only thing I have ever heard of him was he was a very violent person. He mistreated my mother. He mistreated her siblings. He was just very mean, very just evil. I remember my aunts used to say he's the prettiest man, but the evilest person you'll ever meet. And you're just like him. And so,
Wow.
knowing now that, being spoken death, if you will, what I found out that weekend was that my dad had died because he literally was committing acts of domestic violence against my mother. And when they called the police that particular Sunday morning, literally the police got behind him and he fired on them and they fired back and killed him. So the root, as I later found out, was that it was hard for people in my family to talk about him around me. No one ever, like I said, no one really said anything of anything positive about him. And the amazing part is that I literally almost reciprocated what he had done to my mom, or what he was attempting to do by way of harming her and harming her family with a gun. I literally almost reciprocated that my senior year of college to my girlfriend. And it's amazing how the cycle of violence, the amount of evil that's in our bloodlines.
Okay, so I was going there. So, and they told you were just like him.
Just like him. And so as I'm speaking with many family members, friends, as I speak in the public, you have to speak life into your children. You have to encourage them. You have to support them. You have to let them know, as a parent, I am always here for you. I may not always agree with what your beliefs may be, but as your parent, and as we always talk about, as a fellow human to mankind, it comes down to respect, and it comes down to if no one ever shows you how to properly love yourself, because no one has ever properly loved you, how do you now get into any kind of relationship and properly love someone else? If all you've seen is violence, if all you've seen, for me, I just remember torturous things as a child. And then after those acts of violence.
So you were abused as a child?
I was abused as a child. And we're talking about physical abuse. We're talking about, if you get in trouble, it's wait till tonight so we can put you in the basement with the lights out, And so for me, the amazing part, I was never scared. I think I was more afraid for my cousins who were, outright scared, just outright scared. And I just remember thinking, one of these days, when I get bigger and stronger, I'm going to harm these people for doing this to me. And I remember going to school, with the thought that I can't share this with anybody, because they were told me, you don't say anything to anybody or else. So here is the silence part, and that's why I relate to the victims, because I know what it's like for someone to tell you that the consequences for you telling is going to be
worse than what
is
you're
worse
already
than
getting
what
now.
you've been put through.
Okay.
And so now
So there's the fear.
there's the fear. And and so now you go from a child that should be happy, a child that should be enjoying their childhood, to now your thoughts are, I can't make a mistake, I can't be wrong. And as a victimizer, now I am very conscious and aware that I did those very same things to the people who were close to me. So the very thing I hated is the very thing that I became. And that's that cycle of violence, that cycle of control, manipulation, intimidation, and bullying. So now, if I'm being violently assaulted, whether it be mentally or physically, at the house, now as a youngster, I go to school and I become that bully. I become the bully.
That's all you know.
And that's all I knew. And and you just question, why can't I be a better person than this? And I mean, obviously we're talking about the solutions, which was the book. I didn't know what those solutions were as a 7-year-old or 8-year-old or coming through elementary grade school. I didn't know it, especially didn't know it in middle school, where you got all of these hormones and machismo and let me impress this person. And but that's when a lot of the violence and my attention to the streets of Baltimore became
Baltimore.
Yes, Baltimore. We call it Ball Till You Get More, or Baltimore, or worst case, Bodymore. And and it's sad because there are a lot of, just because it's Baltimore, there are a lot of cities, regardless of culture, whether it's the city or whether it's the country. We're talking about how people respond to violence. And so Baltimore is just an example of a mentality and a culture, regardless of whether it's
where
rural.
it is.
We're talking about violence.
Right. So, so this happened to you. You found yourself being your father, okay, emulating the behavior that they said you were like. I can see how personally you want to make a change, but why so publicly? Why? What's the reason? What did you see? What happened? What's the epiphany? What occurred?
The epiphany for me, outside of the strong individuals with the Me Too movement and Time's Up, I had grandkids. I had grandsons that came into my world 6 years ago. And at the end of the day, we think, how will we be remembered? But how will I be remembered to their children and their children's children?
Okay.
And
the legacy.
The legacy. And if I don't stop this cycle of violence, it means that they're just going to grab it and perpetuate it and continue this cycle of violence, hurting a lot of people, a lot of families along the way, the destruction of our legacy, the destruction of living a great life, living the best life you can live, but being mentally well, being happy with who you are and how God made you. Domestic violence it has no boundaries where it reaches. And I didn't want it to reach them. And I didn't want it to reach their children or their wives and so forth. I wanted to be the one in the bloodline that said, enough. It's over. It ends with me.
So in the way that you, thank you so much for sharing. Thank you. In the way that you're serving the community now, because that's not wanting to see it in your family members and the male family members has brought you to this community piece. And so there's another part of that's on your website that I like to read. We serve 3 communities. Our first community and client customer is the abuser and violent offender of innocent, abused, bullied children, women, members of the LGBTQ, hugely controversial, community, and animals. The second community whom we humbly and respectfully serve are the survivors of domestic violence, child abuse, and bullying. No one deserves to live under constant threat or fear that you just talked about, fear of death. The women and children are boldly stepping forward and rightfully take claim to no longer being a victim. We want to support them and help them on their journey to happiness and what you said about wellness. And this is the Oneness Wellness Lifestyle Show, and this was paramount to have you here to talk about this healing, because that is how I view it. That is absolutely how I view it. So again, I want to leave you, the audience, as we go to break with those words. The website is familyman.org.
Family Mankind.
Family Mankind, thank you. Familymankind.org. And we're going to talk some more about that when we come back. Stay tuned. Tell a friend. Thank you for watching. We'll be right back.
If you want to get a lot of people very angry at you, and you're in the health profession, it's fairly simple. Begin to cure incurable diseases.
It would ruin the economy. Billions of dollars.
Cancer is one of the richest multi-billion-dollar industries in the world, and every cancer patient is a commodity.
The huge pharmaceutical companies have everybody in their pocket, from the president on down to the senator's representative. Everybody gets paid.
Something's terribly wrong when you treat cancer and your hair falls out and you vomit. This is truly medieval.
People in the United States and developed countries who are treated for cancer don't even die of cancer. They die of the treatment of cancer.
Many years from now, people look back at this time and wonder what kind of Neanderthals we were.
A prophet many years ago, he said, "My people perish for lack of knowledge."
Welcome back to the Oneness Wellness Lifestyle Show, special edition, She Fat Awakens. She Fat Awakens. I'm here with a person I would love to, and I'm so happy to be able to call my friend now, A.W. Burges, on a mission to eradicate domestic violence, not just bring awareness, Well, we were just on break talking about awareness in the framework of the abuser never have been addressed or face any accountability, right? And so you said that 70 years old.
I literally have, in my travels and in speaking engagements, I have had people as old as the 70 years old, come up to me with tears in their eyes, saying, "You are the very first person that has ever held me accountable," meaning made me aware of the things that I was doing to my family, to my legacy, to my bloodline. And it overwhelmed these individuals to the point of literally submission, to the point where it's like, I don't have but so much time left on this earth.
Okay.
So let me right now do what I can do to clean up the things that I've done that are going to impact my children, that will impact my grandchildren, that will impact how people will remember me. And so, when I'm speaking with batterers and abusers, one of the things I always say is, write your own, what would you put on your tombstone? Write your own sermon, write your own eulogy.
Yeah.
Exactly, thank you. For how you want people to remember you, but show it to your family and tell them to be completely honest and say, is this really how you guys are going to remember me? Because I can assure you that when you are that accountable, that aware of how you've loved others, how you have served others, that's honest feedback. And so for me, that I wouldn't want to have something on my tombstone that really wasn't who I was, because I believe that my wife would probably say, that's not him. That's not how he treated me. That may be how he treated you guys at work. That may have been how he treated you out in the public. But if you can't have that kind of honest, again, real, loving, honest opinion about who you really were to others, well, then it's like I said, then you are that person who is a hypocrite. You're that person who is a hero at work, but a zero at home.
Wearing a mask. I love that.
Indeed.
A hero at work and a zero at home.
And a zero at home.
So you wear this mask. So you're just great guy out in the world, but you at home you're a terror.
Terror. I mean, and I mean when you hear the testimonies of women who say that they were timed from the time they left their job, they were timed to get home. So they had 13 minutes or 17 minutes with traffic to get home, or else there were consequences. And so, again, no one deserves to live under that threat, whether you're a female, a male, a child, and even, again, as you mentioned earlier, even an animal. And, you know, because abusers, I always tell people, for me, that was probably the first sign that there was something wrong with me, because we abused dogs. I watched a great friend kill a dog right in front of me. And my opinion at that time, 12 years old, was, I'm glad you killed him, because I'm just as annoyed as you are. To look at that today as a father, as a human being, wow. How can you take an innocent animal's life? Well, that just graduates to human beings. So when you look at a lot of, you know, again, America has is obsession with our serial killers.
Right.
Many of them started out of abusing animals, but they started because somebody was abusing them mentally, physically. I write in the book how folks like Charles Manson, on his birth certificate, his name was no name. I'm not making any excuses for him. But where do you start life out if you don't have a name and your mother trades you for a pitcher of beer? Where does that start? And so when you don't have people speaking life into our children, you know, and then we wonder why a Columbine happens. We wonder why a Sandy Hook happens. Many of those you know, incidences that have happened to our country, when you look back at the instances, it starts right there at the family and what happened to these individuals. Again, no excuses. I'd make no excuses.
But violence is violence.
Violence is violence. It's kind of like when you said, hey, you serve the LGBTQ community.
I was going to come right back to that,
Well, again, in my family, as in, you know, as the case in many families or in some cases, I had a gay uncle. I had a lesbian aunt. And I remember throughout my, you know, as a child thinking, well, why don't they go to the same church as we do? Candidly, they weren't welcomed. And so for me, again, being in the violence business, I don't look at people based on their sexual identity. I know that the LGBTQ is one of the most dangerous communities of domestic violence, where the homicide rate is the highest in all of, you know, domestic violence situations. And so for me, the business doesn't allow me or wouldn't permit me to judge anybody. You know, I always tell people, it's kind of like if I'm feeding the homeless, what am I going to say? I can't feed you because of your sexual identity? No, my mission is to feed people, just like with the domestic violence. My mission is to eradicate the individual whose mental wellness is compromised and get them on a mentally healthy path so they do not go out and commit, you know, egregious acts of violence and harm. Agreed.
Okay. So, and thank you so much for bringing that back. We talked about that in the green room, and I shared your website with someone, and they said, "Well, you see that LBGT, we can't even touch anything that is doing anything with that." And I
Right.
was like scratching my head,
Like, where did that
it's
come
like,
from?
Yes.
Well, again,
and are you really paying attention?
Look at the mission, because at the end of the day, and this is what I share with even individuals like that. Hey, everyone is certainly entitled to their opinion, and I don't challenge it. But what I share with them is, if you're at work, and a lot of times, whether it's work or school or just even going to the grocery store, we don't know what people's sexual identity is, right?
Right.
But if that person's boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever it may be, shows up with an AR-15 or AK-47, committing an act of domestic violence, now you're impacted by that person. Not that they are part of the LGBT community, you're impacted. So for me, my business, the violence business, takes me into all communities without prejudice, without judge, regardless of what my opinion may be or what yours may be. I am in the mission. My mission is to save lives, save legacies. And the only way I can accommodate the individuals is I got to get to them first. So how do I protect victims if I can't get to the person who is
the abuser?
Right. If I'm got a hold up against some community, or it's because they're elderly, there's
or disabled,
right? As I shared earlier,
Yes.
that we're talking about our most vulnerable communities. And so think about it. Imagine if any of us, someone said, "I don't like you because you're this way, or because you're that way, or because you're vegan, or because you're fat, bald," whatever someone else's hang up is. My business says, regardless of all that, let me get to the person that could harm someone. And so as I share with them, we can work with any organization, but that's part of the issue too, whereas we're not communicating with each other, and things are very divisive, whether it's religion, whether it's economics, or I live on this side of town, or I have a degree and you don't. Again, for me, none of that matters. What matters to me truly is, how do I get to that individual to take that mental weapon away from them so they don't harm anybody or any class of people.
So the healing takes place for the abuser.
Yes.
There's a lot going on for those who are abused, and we're
Yes.
for them too, right? Don't by any stretch of the imagination think that we are not. But that this is the first time ever I have heard that anyone wants to do something for the one who's causing harm.
Yes.
And the healing has to take place in their mentality, in their spirit. And so we're talking about a healing to stop, to eradicate the violence. And the other part of this that makes it so big, as I explained before, is that we're talking about a worldwide epidemic
Yes.
of abuse
Yes.
on everybody on the planet. Okay,
Yes.
at some level, there's financial oppression and intimidation, right? I mean, you can just talk about any level of abuse and violence. And one of the things that you pointed out so clearly just now is that there's a lot of divisiveness, right? And so we take our differences as a reason to be able to be violent against one another, right?
And
justify it. Thank you. And it's interesting because one of the things that my husband says is that everybody talks about unity, but there's no unification, right? So it's just lip service, right? It's just lip service. And what you're doing, however, in addressing the abuser and the abused, okay, across the entire spectrum, is so healing, and it is so unifying as a, I want to say concept, but that's not what, it's not a concept. This is very real. This is emotionally wrenching. And I'm sure for those of us who have been abused, you're having a whole different kind of experience with this, a conversation today with A.W. Burges. I am moved beyond what you can possibly imagine right now, and that's why this had to be a very special edition of She Fat Awakens, because this is there's a new word that people are saying, woke, right? Woke, yeah. Right? Well, we here to woke you, right? This is about awakening, right? So a state of consciousness called woke. I saw it on the cover, Essence or Ebony or something this month, and it triggered me having this conversation with you. When I saw that on the cover, I said, yeah, this is a conversation about being woke.
Well, think about it. With respect to that LGBTQ,
yes.
If I'm dealing with, think about this, and I deal with a female victim of domestic violence, and she does not understand why her husband is abusing her. But then when I speak with him, and he is candid and says, to be honest with you, AW, I'm gay, and I don't know how to share that with my wife.
Wow.
I hate women, but society says I have to be a certain way.
We'll be right back. Hey there, this is She Fat, the natural healing voice of the soul of Mother Earth. Happy, healthy, and healing day. I just wanted to come and give you a few tips. You know, one of the things we like to do is add more value, right? And so here's some tips on the ecosystem of success. The ecosystem of success. How do you create an ecosystem of success? So first of all, we have to realize that growing up, we had different experiences that shaped who we are. They say that by the time it is that we're 7 years old, we have already shaped who it is that we are in our mindset. It's already been taught to us. So since that is the case, we have received encouragement, right? Encouragement. We have also received support and also challenge. So whatever our life has looked like over the years, maybe you don't feel like you were supported, or maybe you don't do well with challenges, right? Or maybe it is that your encouragement was not as great as it could have been. Well, whatever that is, you are in your present right here, right now, and you can change your life. That's the exciting part. You can change starting right now, and it's just a matter of a decision. Right? So you are one decision away. And so what does that look like? So support is your resources. Look at what your resources are. Where are you being loved and nurtured? Who's doing that? And give into those relationships. And next is encouragement. Being acknowledged and being seen. How encouraged are you being on your job or in your family? Right? Look for those encouragement. We're talking about how to have and recognize your ecosystem or your ecosystem for success. And next is challenge, right? Challenge. Do you have a lack of resources? What do you have to overcome? What is it that you want to bring into your life? So look at how you're showing up in the world based on the environment that you grew up in. Right? Whether that's a mix of support, encouragement, and challenge. And make sure that in all three of these areas that you develop your own life. Alternatively, surround yourself with people who fill in the gaps. So if you don't feel like you have enough support, surround yourself with people who support you. Surround yourself with people who encourage you. And surround yourself with people, yes, who challenge you. Okay? And this is how you create the ecosystem for success. It's about being holistic. It's about being whole. This is the Oneness Wellness Lifestyle Show, and I'm She Fat, and I want to just bring you that tip on how to create an ecosystem for success. Thanks for watching. Welcome back to the Oneness Wellness Lifestyle Show, our very special segment, She Fat Awakens. We're talking about domestic violence, actually eradicating domestic violence. And in this final segment, I'm going to talk with AW about the secrets, the safety, and what are the solutions? What are the solutions? Where are we with this?
Got you. Well, to address the secrets or the silence,
okay,
is really the epicenter of what's really killing people, killing people figuratively and killing people literally. When you know, people call me the wolf, right? And they say, well, why are you the wolf? Well, when you think about a wolf travels in a pack, right? So they're traveling with their family. And what do wolves do? Wolves communicate by doing what? They howl. But that's just it. If we were all in a cabin up in the mountains of North Carolina and we heard a howl from a wolf, I think many of us will look around and take cover.
Right.
But that's just the point. In relationships, any relationship where domestic violence is being occurred, and here you have these secrets, right? That's like muting a wolf. You've got to howl for help. And so by doing that, you make people aware that, hey, someone is harming me, okay? And so I would go to school, like many children that have either witnessed domestic violence, had the abuse placed upon them. You're on mute. You're on silence. And so that silence literally puts you in darkness, okay? And so you don't have the howl in you because you're too afraid of the consequences. And so those secrets, the continuance of those secrets, the perpetuation of the secrets now leads to your children being secretive people. Oh, what goes on here stays here. Well, again, for me, one of the greatest, I don't have any regrets, but one of the greatest things I wish I had done was tell someone at school someone was harming me. Yeah. To tell someone at school that this is what life is at my house. I don't know if it's right or not, but let the adults be the adults. Yes, tell them what's happening, because far too often when we hear where an individual is killed, whether it was a child, whether it was an individual that was being battered, I never knew. The folks at the job, I never knew. You know, I knew something was wrong, but I never knew. She could never stay late, or, you know, we knew this child was beyond quiet, or they were beyond mean for no reason. Those are signs, you know, the way, you know, again, see how an individual interacts with pets. These are the secrets that, you know, again, you can't really hide who you are. But when you are a victim, literally, those secrets will possibly come back to haunt you as well as haunt the others that are around you. You know, you'd be amazed at how many folks who are interveners are actually killed as a result of domestic violence. And so neighbors that are killed because now they're finding out at the last minute what's going on next door. Yeah. And so for me, you have to be proactive versus reactive about being harmed. And more importantly, about being the victimizer. Okay. So if you're the abuser, you have to howl. You have to howl first. You have to be the one to say, hey, I am an abuser. I am the one who is harming my wife, my girlfriend,
my children,
even my dog. Why am I doing that? And so that's the key about the secrets, is it cannot be a secret. You've got to go talk to a mental health professional, whether it's a psychiatrist or a psychologist, a counselor. Again, the resources at school counselors, the teachers. We have to teach our children to be a snitch. I grew up in Baltimore, where
Ooh.
where the whole snitch campaign, them in Philly, we had the T-shirts drawn up, snitches find ditches. We added to it. I won't be that profane, but that's wrong, because when it happens to your family, when your child is a victim of violence, when your mother or cousin or whomever, now you want the police to know who hurt them. And so that's why I'm sharing with you that the secrets, the no snitch policy that we have inundated in our culture, it's a cultural thing.
Yeah.
We've got to dismiss the snitching. We got to start telling. We got to start yelling. We got to start howling, and we got to ground this. Because think about it, you're breathing power to the perpetrator by saying, okay, no one's going to tell. The funny part about all of it is I wish someone had told. I wish I had told. I wish someone had told on me. My girlfriend eventually told on me. And, that led to consequences in my senior year of college that ultimately ended me having a visit to the penitentiary. But that penitentiary saved my life, because the judge that sentenced me, when he asked me, why are you in front of me? You're getting ready to go to law school. You're going to have a 6-figure salary from a company that's paying for your law school. And you had a wonderful, wonderful girlfriend and family. Why would you destroy that?
Yeah.
And I said to that judge, I don't know. He said, what do you mean you don't know? And I honestly didn't know. And he said, well, we're going to do what we're going to find out why. And so my healing came from the best doctor in the entire state of Virginia at the Central State Hospital, mental hospital. And literally I was on a ward with Virginia's worst criminals, not guilty by reason of insanity type people. But that's where the best psychiatrist was. And he literally pulled out of me all of the gook, all the why, we got to the root cause. And that's part of the solution.
Okay, that's what I'm going to say. So the solution is to howl.
To howl.
Right?
You got to tell.
To howl. You
yell
have to tell.
And tell. Yes.
Yell and tell. You have to howl. And you got to get help.
You have to get help.
As the abuser, you have to get help.
That's the first step.
That's the first step. And as the victim,
yes,
of course you have to get help. We're focusing on the abuser.
The abuser.
Because no one ever talks about that. I've never heard it before. And so we brought up a word, deliverance. Deliverance.
Yes.
And it's how you can be delivered from being an abuser.
Yes.
From being an abuser.
Regardless of your status in life. I go into churches. The pastor is an abuser. So what does that say if our leaders that we look up to or respect,
sure,
what's going to start, you talking about deliverance, how many people will be delivered when that pastor stands in front of the congregation and says, I'll be the first, or, and says to his congregation or her congregation and says, I've been an abuser to my family, or I've been verbally abusive to my staff. I've been spiritually abusive to you. When we start making about who it's really about, and it's less about you and more about, again, what we're serving, to me, that's what I want my life to be. How did I serve others? But I got to love myself first in order to love others. And so that's the hypocrisy that I speak of, that we have many leaders. Think about it. Parents are the leaders in the house.
Right.
Well, we call the church the house of God, and so the leaders have to take the accountability approach and make people aware that, I too am a victimizer. I too am a victim. Or and get that deliverance that you're speaking of. That now, candidly, look at those people who are really down on their knees and praying and crying, and what's wrong, and we don't know why. A lot of it is because they have been victims, or possibly they're the victimizers, and they are, fed up with it. And so that's what I'm calling. Like I said, I'm calling these folks in, not out, and that's the abuser.
Yes. So. We said earlier, and you'll see me, I'm actually perusing the website, familymankind.org, and serving the community in 3 ways. And we talked about the first, the client as the abuser and the violent offender, and second, the community of the survivors, right, of domestic. And then lastly, or thirdly, you serve the community and society we reside in by bringing real solutions to domestic violence, child abuse, and bullying. We wish to train and educate the citizens in our community at businesses, schools, colleges, universities, churches, hospitals, jails, prisons, correctional facilities to permanently eradicate generational cycles of violence and abuse. When we accomplish this, we will reduce criminal recidivism. I don't know what that means.
It means the back and forth. You know that.
Coming the swinging door. Okay,
yes.
The revolving door. Okay, okay. The homelessness, divorce, animal cruelty, crimes of hate against LGBTQ, and ultimately suicide, homicide, and femicide.
Femicide is when the male batterer kills the female. And those numbers are staggering. They're even more staggering when there's a gun in the home. 400% chance you will be killed if there is a gun in the house where domestic violence is occurring. And candidly, I had a gun in the time that, I was in the remarkable thing is I didn't kill her, I didn't kill my friend, and I didn't kill myself.
Right, you didn't get killed,
Yeah.
right, yeah.
So those statistics are actually, I can tell you, I'm a living testimony that those statistics are honest because when there's a gun there, I mean, what good could possibly come out of it?
Right.
But the solutions to, eradicating, the first thing is we have to submit, admit, and commit. We gotta find what the root cause is and work to those solutions.
For the healing.
For the healing.
For the healing.
Yes.
Wonderful, wonderful. For more, go to familymankind.org. This is not the last you're going to hear about this, okay? It's been a special edition of the Oneness Wellness Lifestyle Show. Our special guest has been A.W. Burges, the family man, and this has been an edition called Shifa Awakens. Thank you so much for tuning in today and watching. Please share with a friend, and we look forward to bringing you more health and healing through oneness, wellness as a lifestyle. I'm your host, Shifa. I love you. God bless.